Welcome back, everyone, to Data Science for Everyone. Today we're going to be talking about making a book explorer app. Let's get started. So, the first thing that we want to do when working with a new and creating up a new app is to, open up our terminal. And let me pull it over here and let me make it nice and big for us. Let's go on and create up our application project itself. So, I'm going to go into my desktop. And just so that we can have a place to see it, I'm going to go npm create vite at latest. I'm going to call this book explorer. I'm going to use React, JavaScript. I'm going to cd into our book explorer. I'm going to do npm install. And while this is going, let's kind of talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing. So in this tutorial, we're going to basically be building up a simple book explorer app where users can view a list of books from an API, and they're going to be able to read short descriptions and maybe move the books that they're not interested in. And this is going to teach you how to do the following, okay? We're going to be able to fetch data. We're going to use state management, component-based design, and conditional rendering. So we got the first part in. So now let's move on to the second step. We're going to go on and open this. And I'm not going to run anything yet, but we're going to look and see what we have. So we have our let's not really worry about that right now. So we're going to have our basics. We have our node modules. We have our public folder. We have our src folder. Now inside of our src folder, we have our main.jsx, our app.jsx, our app.css. We have our assets, and we need to now add in our components. And we're going to have in a couple of files in here. We want to create up a new file, and we're going to call this booklist.jsx. And we want to also have another new file called bookcard.jsx. And then I'm going to actually keep, and we'll edit this style app.css to get our styles. Later on, we could technically make up maybe let's go on and do that because a lot of people do that. Let's create up a new folder. We'll call this styles. And inside of our styles, we're going to have a styles.css. Okay, so we have all of our basics that we want to create here. And so let's go on and start kind of creating up this application. So let's actually maybe start off with our book.jsx. Okay, and then maybe we will, you know what, let's actually start with our book card, because then we can say book card is going to be imported into book.jsx, which is going to be imported into the app.jsx. So first our book card. So we're going to import React, and we're going to use state from React. And here we're going to create up a book card renders individual book cards, or actually book details. Okay, I like that better. So first off, we're going to const book card, and this is going to equal to we're going to have an ID, a title, an author, a description, and on remove. Okay. And again, if we wanted to, we could have done this with a normal function. I'm just using an arrow function right now. And then the next thing we want here is local state to toggle read more, show less. Okay, so that's going to be const read more, set read more, and the initial state is going to be false. Okay, and then we're going to return here our book card, and we're going to actually create this up as an article. And the book class here is actually going to be book card. And I actually need to close this off. And what we want in here, let's have a h3 tag for our title. We want an h5 tag for our author. And let's go on and give a nice paragraph. A paragraph tag here. And what are we going to want to put in here? Let's have in here, so first off, let me actually make a comment here. And what do we want? So we want to show a full description if read more is true. Okay? Otherwise, a slice. Okay? So what do we want to do here? Well, read more. Read more. If that's true, we want the description. Else, we want to have some substring here. And maybe 80. I want the slice actually. Let's make it 80 instead of 100 in here. And then we want a button. Okay, and this button here, we're going to have an on click. Here, and it's set for read more if not read. If not read more. So if this is false, then this will set to true. This is going to set our toggle button here. And again, it read more if this is true, so it's not. All right, it's going to say show less, else it's going to say read more. Okay, and that's the end of our button. Now, the next thing we want here is to have a button to remove the book. Okay, and so here we want a button, and we want the class name here to be, let's say, button-remove. And on click here, we want on remove by ID. And this button here will just say remove book. Okay, and then finally from down here, we want to export default book card. So here we've created up our nice book card. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is to go on to our book list. Okay, and our book list, we want to import React. We also want use effect. We also want use state. Okay. And then, since we created up our book card, we want to go on and import our book card. Now, the next thing that we want in here is to say our book list is responsible for fetching books and rendering the list. Okay, so let's const book list. Okay, and whoops, go back over here. And inside of our book list here, we want books, set books, and on remove. Okay, and let me go on and close this so that things don't get messy here in a minute. Now, what's the first thing we want? We want to deal with our local state. State to manage loading and errors. Okay, so first we want const loading set loading. Our use state is going to be set to true. Now we are going to have our error with our set error, and instead of null here, we want to make it false. And here, let's go on and function to fetch books from the API. And let's do const fetch books. We want this to be asynchronous, and I'm going to let this stay here, but I do not want this just yet. I want to go, and we're actually going to go, and let me just show you guys really quickly. Let me pull up Chrome really quick. So let's pull up, we actually want to go to https://gutendex.com/books. And this is actually the API that we're going to be using. Let me turn this to a pretty style here. And you can see here that we have ID, we have title, we have authors, okay? We have birth year, death year, we have some summaries, we have translations, we have all kinds of nice stuff. So here, for example, we have ID 84, title, Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus. We have Mary Shelley, the author. We have her birth year, death year. We have a summary of Frankenstein. We have translations. We have subjects. We have bookshelves. We have language. We have all kinds of nice information. So, but again, all we're going to want to do in here is, well, and I will snatch this and I will put it in here. Oops. We have our books in there. Now we want the response. Okay, and again, I usually dislike using the whole word response, but so we'll just do res. Okay, and we have the first thing here is this function we're going to be grabbing in our API. We are fetching the data, so we're waiting for the response. We're also going to await the transformation into JSON in here, and then here, all right, I'm gonna actually delete this. This is where sometimes things start going haywire when you use, you know what, I don't like it. I'm going to actually get rid of this, and I just don't like the way that it was trying to code this for. So let's do const fetch books. Here we definitely want the async in here, and I'm going to delete all of that for now, just so that we have what we want. And we're going to first try in here, and we want const response is equal to await fetch here, and I have our Gutenberg language. We want to map the API data to only the fields we need. Okay, so const trimmed is equal to data.results.map book, and we want this to be ID such that book.id ID. We want title to be book title. We want author to be book authors. We want the first name, and we'll actually put name, or we want it to say unknown. Okay, and then our description. Description here to be download count, such that we want book download count. And we'll also put in here something like subjects book dot subjects. And you know what? Instead of join, I don't want all of them. Subjects dot slice, and we want 1 to 3 dot join, again by a comma. There. Okay. And the next portion that we want here, let me go back over to the side, and we have this is still going to be inside of our try here. We want to have in here our set books to trimmed, and this here is going to save data to global state. We want in here to set loading to false. And then now we want to go on to catch our error. Okay, before we move on, let's kind of clean some stuff up, because I can definitely see that there's some errors here. So let's see where things have gone wrong here. We don't have anything matching there. If that's correct, right? Who do you belong to? You belong to that one. Then we have set books. This belongs to that one. So we don't need, there we go. So now I think we're heading in the right direction here. So now let's catch our error. Okay, and then we want to also console log. We don't actually want to console log the error. We want to set our error to true. And then we want to set loading to false here. And basically what we're doing is, here is if the fetch fails, show error. Okay. And then we'll set our loading to false. Okay, so let's actually see here how, an example of how Copilot is actually going to be generating some edits. And I don't actually think that there's supposed to be any errors in here, but we can take a look and see here. And all it's doing is making sure some of our items are matching in here. So let's just accept the changes. And notice here, it actually just put things back in the right order for us, which is very helpful. Okay, so Now let's move on to dealing with our rendering state here. So we need to actually set up and set up our use effect. So we want to run our fetch books. Run our fetch books once after the component mounts. Okay. So again, the basics of what we want here is to have the use effect with our fetch books. Okay. And again, we need all of this in here. So we want use effect. Once it's run, it's going to fetch our books. And again, this is only going to be doing it once. Okay. And then we need to run, we need to render everything. Render loading state here. So let's say if loading, we want to return an H2 tag here saying loading. So it'll be nice and big for us. Okay. And then we need to do the same thing here. And actually we can, let's do here for render our error state. And again, if error, we can say something went wrong, again in a nice H2 tag. Then finally, we want to render if there's no books. Okay, so render if no books remain. Okay, so if book length is equal to 0, here we want to return here no books left, and we need to set up a button here. And this button on click here is going to fetch books. Okay, and here we'll call this button refresh. Now finally, we can go down here and render the list of book cards. Okay, so return here, and we're going to create up a section for this. And inside here, we want our class name to be a book list. And we want to be books.map book. Okay, and here we want our book card, our key to be book ID. And we also want to open up our book. So this is using the spread operator to pass our book properties. And here we want on remove to pass our remove function, and this is going to end our section. Finally, after all of this, here we need to export default book list. And so what we actually have here is this needs to go inside of here. Make sure everything's set there. And I think we're still missing something in here. We'll be able to check it here in just a minute. So, and let's actually just again, so we can get some more practice in here, let's actually have Copilot fix using Copilot. So let's say it tells us that it's expecting another curly bracket here. So then it says the problem is caused by a missing closing brace for book list. Okay, so if books.length is equal to 0, we try and fix these issues. Then it's restructuring the return statement. So it's going to generate an edit, and we can go and double check it. So all this is done is reordered and made sure that we have, again here, notice we were missing an item in here, so we can accept that. And it has fixed our error for us. So again, thank you to that. And I think we're good to go. So the next thing that we want to do is go on to, this is the biggest one. So let's go on now to our app.jsx. Okay, and I'm going to actually just delete everything in here, and I want to kind of start over with it. So let's import React from React. We also want use state from React. Import our book list from book list. Now we want a root component for our app, and we want function app. Oh, and this should be app. There we go. Now, inside of here, we want global state to hold the list of books. So that's const books with our set books, and we're just going to set a, we don't need this because we're actually talking about it already. We are using a empty list as our initial state in here. And so now let's go on and create up a function to remove a book by its ID. Okay, so let's do const remove book with our ID. Again, we're going to set previous books. We're going to grab that. We're going to filter by the book such that its ID is not equal to some ID. Then we want to return in here, and we're going to set up a main tag here. And we're going to have h1. We want book explorer. And then we want here, let me actually say pass state and handlers down to the book list component. And we're going to list our books. Okay. Whoop, and we don't need this here. Okay. So finally, we export default app. So let's, again, I know that there's probably going to be an error because it says that there's some errors in here, but let's, for now, go on and take a look and do npm run dev. Okay, and we're going to go on and open it. It says books loading. And notice here we're not getting anything. So let's inspect. Let's grab our elements and uncaught type error cannot read properties of undefined substring book card. Okay, so it's looking and telling us that we're getting an error inside of a book card component. And then here it is also giving us some extra errors saying that that error occurred inside of our book card. So it's going back to our book card and in book card 15 to 56. So let's go on back over there and take a look and see what we can find. So book card 15 to 56. So again, it's actually saying that there's some issue in here. So as we're kind of looking around here, we probably need to look, and again, let's kind of just look again at our uncaught error in here. So it's uncaught error, cannot read properties of undefined, reading substring. So one of the hints that we have in here is substring, okay? So let's go back and look at substring. The only thing that we have for substring is right here. And actually, I wanted to actually use slice in here and not substring. So let's actually see if that solves our problem. Oh, again, so here it says now it's cannot read properties of undefined reading of slice. So now again, it's telling us there is still something here that it does not like. So let's see if we can maybe change this up to being maybe a little bit dumber. Oops. And see if we can maybe solve this a little bit more. Instead of using that template literal in here, let's do read more description else description dot read slice. And let's put all of you together. Okay. And let's see if that wants to do anything now. Again, here, this is part of it. This is all just part of the process here where, and let's actually add in another thing here and say no description available. And so now let's also double check what other types of things that we maybe could look at for potential ways to fix this. So I thought that may work here, but again, it may not. So I still want to, So maybe it's not liking, we have what? Let's double check here. So let's actually maybe go, maybe if this isn't what's causing our issue, maybe it's somewhere downstream. Okay, so let's maybe add, let's add one more potential thing in here just for safety's sake here, and we can say no description available as well. And it doesn't like the parser here as well. So all right, I'm going to still get rid of that. And let's go on and maybe make sure that our description values are all set. So let's go and double check inside here, okay? So again, we're getting this error, so let's just get it to be quiet on that particular error, and we'll console log the error so that it knows that we're actually going to be using it. And let's go on and double check where we build our description fields. So let's refresh. And caught, it still doesn't like that slice. So it's not liking the slice. So let's make sure all of our description values are properly set. So again here, let's look for our descriptions. Const await, trim, author's description. So maybe here is where we're also getting an error, because notice here we're also using the slice here. So what happens if let's get rid of the book subjects for now. And let's see if this actually helps with our issue. Nope. And again, it still says that it's in book card. So let's go back and let's double check really quickly. So again, it's still not liking this. And so let's go back over here and let's double check for, so notice here, it doesn't actually have a description. So again, that was probably my error in here. So let's maybe grab the summaries instead. So if we're grabbing summaries, let's change book card, author, description, description, so description. So let's go back here and let's make this a little bit safe, a little bit safer. So let's do, say, const safe description is equal description or no description available. Okay, and then now we can render our book card here, and we're going to have our article with our class book card. We're going to have our title, our author. We'll have our read more, and this will be safe description. And then we'll have safe description of our slice on click. I think that should do it. So now let's check here and let's refresh. All right, so now we have here, and again, what we saw here is that there's just no description available for anything. So we want to change that up to summaries. Okay, so that's something that we can do very easily. So what we can do then is we can go on and change up all the potential places where it can be summaries, okay? So again, I like to keep a safe description here, but we'll call this summaries. And we'll call it safe description because we can still keep that. And maybe we'll just say no, whoops, no summary available. Okay, and maybe I guess we should say safe summaries. All right, and then we can go over here and we can change this as well. So description to summaries. Change all there. So now, hopefully, we can go back, we can refresh. Oh, and here it actually has information about the download count that we were wanting before. Okay, so we can read more. And again, it's not giving us our whole summary here because we put in our summaries is to be download count. So let's actually change this up just so that we can actually have some more text in there. Again, we want this to look kind of nice. We can say summary instead of download word count. We can say book.summaries. Refresh. All right, and so now we can add these read more. We can show less. We can remove the book, remove a book, remove a book, remove a book. We can remove a ton of books. So let's see if we can remove all the books, and let's see if no books left. Refresh. And it refreshes and it works. Okay, so the final last thing that we could do, if we so chose, would be to edit the CSS, but I think that this video has gone on long enough, and so if you guys wanted to, you can always edit the CSS to make it look pretty and look clean, but I'll leave that for you guys. And again, this has been just a nice overview of how to create up a nice book explorer, okay? If you guys like this, please comment, subscribe, hit that like button, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.